Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the iWorkininSport live interview. This is the show where we talk to accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, experience, tips, and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. If we're just meeting, my name is João Frigerio. I'm the founder of iWorkininSport, and I want to thank you for being with us today. If this is the first time, let me know in the comments. If you're coming back, it's great to see you again. You know how that goes. And also, if you're actually watching the replay, let us know in the comments as well if this is your first time or if you're coming back. And as you know, we always ask you where you're watching from. It's always good to know where you're connecting from. If you don't know iWorkininSport, we're a platform to help you accelerate your career in sport. If you want to work in sport, or if you already work in sport, we're here to help you either way. Also, if you want to study in sports, we're here to help you too. We work with, we organize events in person and digitally, online, such as job fairs or education expos that will connect you with recruiters or with academic programs in case you're looking to expand your career through studies. If you're coming back, you know us, I'll ask you to already hit that like button. If this is your first time, you can wait a little, see if you like it, and then I would appreciate it if you do that, especially if you're watching it, that's on YouTube. We're also streaming on LinkedIn. Now, let me introduce you my guest today. Today, I'll have the pleasure to welcome one of the most important people in my professional career. Today, I have the privilege to call him my friend, but Mr. Mike Laflin, who will join us in just 1 minute, was also my first boss here in Europe, right after I graduated from the FIFA Master back in mid-2005, so quite a while ago. So I learned so much from him during the time we worked together that since when I started these interviews, I've been wanting to invite him to the show. So you too can learn something from him. But since this week he announced the launch of his new venture called Global Sustainable Sport. I thought this would be perfect timing, not only to talk about his inspiring career, but also about this super important topic of sustainability. So without further ado, I will invite Mike to join me right after this. Hello, Mike. Good to see you again.
How are you? Good to see you. How are you?
Very well, very well. I can see that you're talking from home today.
Yeah. This is my new office. So been here for a good few years now. But it's a nice environment to work in, and got a lot done here. So really nice. In just outside Richmond Park. So great spot to be.
Great. Well, I'm talking from home too. You were here not too long ago. And listen, Mike, so today I think we're going to be talking about, two things. As I mentioned, I had the privilege to work with you for some time, learn a lot from you. And I think that people will also have the opportunity to learn a bit from your own career. But especially also in this episode in particular, I'd like to talk about this topic of sustainability. Right, I've been wanting to talk about the topic for some time. I had a call with a good friend of ours, Daniel Cade, just a couple of weeks ago about that. And then I thought that would be a perfect opportunity for us to talk about it. Just before I do, some dear people are already sending messages here. You will know them. So my message is my mom. She's so happy to see me interviewing you.
I love it.
So my dad as well.
Yeah.
There's Pav. Pav, remind us where you're watching from And here we have Erica. She's in Brazil at the moment. Right. And Kathy Hobbs in the UK.
I know Kathy very well. Sponsoring her.
Thanks for being here, Kathy. And everybody else who's watching this either on YouTube or on LinkedIn, please also, just let us know where you're watching from. Mike, so let's start, as I always sort of start this conversations, or almost always, with a bit of summary of your career. Let's let people know a bit more about you. So maybe where you studied, or what did you study, and how you actually started working in sport.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because a long time to kind of think during COVID about kind of how you ended up getting to where you got to. And I had an extraordinary privilege last year that when I was at school, I was at a place called Brighton College down on the sea. Possibly one of the leading public schools in the country. Certainly wasn't that in my day. I wouldn't get into that school nowadays. But my rugby master from Brighton College, he basically came to me one day, and I'd won the school cross country a couple of times, and I was kind of a pretty average left winger in rugby. And he said, Mike, you're an okay rugby player, but you're a much better runner than you are a rugby player. So he took me to my local running club, Brighton and Hove Athletics, and actually last year was his 50th year at Brighton College, so he's still actually at the school and still teaching, and so I had the opportunity to go and see him and actually say, a big thank you to a teacher who basically kind of went on beyond kind of the remit, and took me in his own personal time to Brighton and Hove Athletic Club, and in fact started my career in sport, because that move to take me to Brighton and Hove Athletic Club ended up with me meeting.
What level of school was that? Was that high school?
I was 15 at the time. Right. So sort of equivalent to high school, yeah. And he introduced me to a family there. A family called the Bristows. You probably know Paul Bristow. And through Brighton and Hove Athletic Club, I got to know Paul Bristow, and I ended up working in athletics because of Paul Bristow. So had John not taken me to Brighton and Hove Athletics Club, I probably would never have considered sport as a career. And so that opportunity came from his move to actually encourage me to be an athlete rather than a rugby player. And it was my privilege, as you say, last year to meet him in his 50th year at Brighton College and say thanks, because without him doing that, I don't think I'd have ever ended up where I got to. And sport was a love from an early age, and I went to uni, became captain of athletics at uni, and I know that might sound pretty cheesy, but I watched Chariots of Fire one day while I was at uni, and I just thought, I want to be an Olympic athlete. So having been fairly not that motivated at university with my athletics, I really got into athletics in a big time post uni, but I had a bit of a challenge because my club was Brighton and Hove Running Club, and Steve Ovett was the club sort of champion, if you like. So basically, to get into the 800 or the 1500 in the Brighton and Hove team, I'd have had to have beaten the Olympic champion, which was pretty tall order. And the guy who was the kind of long distance runner was a guy called Mickey Grattan, and he won the first London Marathon. So I ended up doing steeplechase, and so I became quite a good steeplechase runner. Got to 17th in the UK, and was training. But I was also working full time for a company called Mark Rich. I was writing computer systems. I trained as a programmer, so I was writing oil and.
Is that what you studied at university?
No, geography and economics. So I did a TOPS course after uni to learn programming. Discovered that I had a skill for programming, and got a job at Mark Rich. But I was, as I say, training probably 120 miles a week, doing 3-week sessions, and then working on top. And yeah, that was quite something. That was kind of mid 25s when I was doing that. Loved my athletics, had some amazing experiences running. Got to a Grand Prix meeting where Steve Cram was trying to break his 4th world record at Gateshead in front of 11,000 people. That was really quite a moment. And sadly, I discovered I had shingles during that race, or after that race. So unfortunately, I had to kind of step back, and then one injury after another. And kind of my athletics career was really kind of struggling at that point. And then Paul Bristow invited me over to the IAAF one day, and kind of, if you had said to me, can you think of your dream job as a fan of athletics and a fan of what they were doing and working in IT and athletics, that was kind of it. But I was earning a lot of money at the time at Mark Rich, and it was quite a difficult financial decision to do that. But they basically said, listen, we'll help you set up as a consultant. So they gave me an opportunity to set up my own consultancy. Having started working for them, they introduced me then to the Sailing Federation and the Tennis Federation, who were all based around Knightsbridge. And so I was really, really lucky. I ended up working for 3 international sports federations within, a few miles of each other.
Doing what? Doing what?
So I was setting up their IT systems. So I built media information systems for them in athletics. Media, did a ranking system, a Grand Prix ranking system, did a lot of other ranking systems for tennis, created the first sailing ranking system. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. I mean, I love a lot of different sports. So although athletics is kind of a big passion,
and that was when? That was what, early 90s already?
Yes, so that was 89. I joined the IAAF. And at the time I was single, didn't have a family, didn't have a girlfriend actually at the time. So I was working like 18 hours a day. I mean, it was a crazy time actually, but great fun, an amazing bunch of people. At athletics, as I say, Paul Bristow was there. There was some fantastic people. Met some great people at tennis and sailing, and yeah, it was really amazing to be in that area. But what was interesting was that I was working, as I say, a lot of hours, and during that time, I met a guy who was producing a piece of software, and it was the Racing Rules of Sailing, which doesn't sound the most inspiring sort of product, it has to be said. But I said to him, how much are you charging for your product? And he said, about £100. And I said, okay, how many have you sold? And he said, 7,000. And I was like, wow. So it got me thinking, well, with my IT knowledge and everything else, was there a way to create a product that I could sell? And so over a sandwich in Hyde Park one day, I came up with the idea for a sports calendar. And I realized while I was working at the IAAF that there was a particular day when, actually you reminded me of this, it was the FIFA World Cup final in 1990, was the same weekend as Wimbledon. And we had a Grand Prix meeting on that weekend. And basically, had we not held it that weekend, we would have got really good TV coverage the weekend after. But we actually held it stupidly on the day where we got no coverage at all. So I realized that actually, if we could get a centralized sports calendar, it would make a lot of sense, and actually broadcasters might be interested in it, and various other people might be interested in a centralized sports calendar. So got a couple of mates, and we started putting together a sports calendar, and we met on a Monday evening after work. We gathered some data on different sports events, put it into a calendar, and Christmas Eve I sent out my first product for 100 quid to about 200 companies, and people like Reuters bought one and BBC bought one, and it was on a floppy disk in those days, so we were posting floppy disks to people, and then it kind of morphed from there into an online platform. And then we discovered people wanted media rights, and they wanted sponsorship information, and they wanted bidding information, and we created a news service. And so, really extraordinary how kind of an idea mushroomed into something way beyond, what I imagined it could be. Obviously, the internet.
So you went from selling floppy disks to an online service.
Yeah, and that was it was a big relief actually to get rid of the floppy disks, I have to say. So, but yeah, and I mean, obviously it was the early days of the internet. I mean, that was 1997 when we launched our first website, and so we were kind of pre.com. And yeah, it was quite something. That
was amazing.
Yeah,
it was a great company. At the time that I was there, we also had a wonderful team. There it was a lot of fun. I remember I tell people this story, Mike. Just you remember I joined you guys a few years sort of down the line. In 2005, right after I graduated from the FIFA Master, and I think you opened a position for the program, and I think I was the only one who applied. and then okay, I got there for a 3 months project, and I thought it was great. It was exactly what I sort of wanted to do. We did a report on mobile rights. Remember at that time, it was very different. The rights were being sold to carriers like Vodafone and Three and those. Yeah. So Paul Bristol that you mentioned was just across, was in the same floor as Sportcal with the Delta Tree, and I think we got some information from them. It was great. And then right after that, I got an offer to go to FIFA.
Yeah, I remember.
And then when I got the offer to FIFA, I called you and I said, Mike, I prefer to stay at Sportcal. You guys, it was fun. But you said, it's 99% certain because we still kind of have to find out, how to pay you. And then you were the one who actually encouraged me, go to FIFA, spend some time there, do the World Cup in Germany, which was a great experience. And then come back. And for me was great. And then I remember also getting your call. I was talking, just a parenthesis here, a fun one. I used to talk to Jair Bertoni a lot, good friend who's at FIFA now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was living here. We were, buddies going out sort of all the time together. And he would go, dude, why don't you ask Mike to work from Lausanne instead of going to London after the World Cup? And I said, oh man, I can't do it. I'm young, I'm starting. I actually have to go where the job is. And then you called me the following. Oops, something fell here. And then you called me the next day to say exactly that, João, you know what? We have a plan. We would like you to come back here, but we're thinking of opening, having a presence in Switzerland. Would you like to come and do that? And then I said, let me think about it. I'll go back to you. That was wonderful. And then we had a great time here with a lovely team. With Martin and Jack and Henri and Zeke.
Exactly. It was a great team. Huh? I mean, I think what for me stands out the most is that I think at Sportcal we created some amazing teams. I mean, if you think that the company was running with me there for 27 years, and we just had some great people. And what's lovely is to see how many people have kind of been through Sportcal and then gone on to great careers in sport, and so we were kind of, I always call us kind of an incubator, if you like, because we weren't a big company. But I think what we did was we gave everybody a really good grounding of what the sports industry was about, and we had a lot of students come through. As you say, Daniel Caddy was part of that project with you, and that for me, actually, honestly, is one of the greatest things. I was with a guy called Fergus from World Volleyball last night, who's now in Switzerland, and he started at Sportcal because my wife was at school with his mum, and a mutual friend of theirs contacted me one day and said, "Oh, look, there's this guy looking for a job in sport, and here he is working in Switzerland in World Volleyball now." So it's wonderful to see how everyone's kind of come through and working in the industry, which I think we all love. So
it was a wonderful experience. But let's wrap up this quickly, because I want to go and talk about sustainability, about sort of the new project. So you were with Sportcal for about 25 years. You left. You started to work on different projects. How then you made this transition until now, when you were this week launching a new company or a project?
I mean, I think what is interesting for me is during my time at Sportcal, I really became very interested in kind of the impact of sports events, particularly on sort of host cities. And my area is really interested in kind of social and environmental impact. And so one of the things that I really picked up on probably 2011, 2012 around the London Olympics was, how do we measure the impact of sport? How do we understand the value of sport? And the currency used for many, many years by lots of host cities and by rights owners really was either tourism, so the economic impact of sport, or the media coverage and the brand exposure of sport. And they were kind of the two metrics used by cities and rights owners. And I felt that actually the value of sport was much greater than that. And actually we were missing part of the equation by not measuring kind of the social value we were bringing to cities and nations. And also we needed to think more environmentally. And so the irony is that probably this word sustainability, probably back in 2011, 2012 was called impact, and legacy and things like that. And so really I started that journey looking at the global sports impact, and then I kind of moved that along to the point where we were doing studies on the impact of sport for different rights owners and different cities, and had some amazing experiences in places like Lahti, where I did the Nordic Ski World Championships and a whole range of different sort of world games and world universiads. And then kind of my journey at Sportcal finished in around about 2019. And I actually then went into mass participation, and I worked with a guy called Chris Robb on helping him set up a company called MPW, which is an amazing business working and looking around mass participation. And then of course COVID hit, and unfortunately for me, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I had an emergency operation to remove my prostate. Fortunately for me, they seemed to have caught it in time. So I was kind of having to stop work and rest up while I was recovering from that. And COVID hit, and sport kind of finished. And so I actually did a COVID website for about 2 years called Total Analysis, which was aggregating data around COVID. And then kind of when COVID started to ease a bit and sport started to come back, I started to really think about, well, what's the impact of sport by COVID? I mean, what's the real sort of impact that that COVID has had on sport? So I started talking to a lot of sports federations and a lot of different organizations. And I realized that actually the big impact for COVID was, they had to stop any social programs. There was no fans in the stadium. There was no environmental programs. So the events literally just had to get across the line. So there was TV coverage, but pretty much nothing else. But what I did start to see is there was a lot of people talking about sustainability. And it got me thinking a lot about, the conversations going on around climate. I've got a real interest in kind of the ocean. Kathy, who you said hi to, we've been sponsoring her on a PhD program looking at the impact of sport and leisure on marine life. It's a great project, and Kathy and Clemency are doing an amazing job looking at that. We're going to cover a few things they're doing on the website. And I thought, you know what, this is, and you said it to me actually a while ago, you're very good at identifying what's needed in the industry. And I felt that what I didn't know is who was doing what in sustainability. I couldn't really find that out. So I went on a course, did a sustainability course, met a few of the key people in the industry, Claire Paul, who's done an amazing job building up her Sport Positive platform, Matthew Campelli, a great team of people at The Shift, Neil, Ingrid, Philippe, and Cecile. And so gradually started to sort of do some research in this area. Went to a couple of great conferences, Global Sports Week in Paris, Sport Tech in Lausanne with Anna Hellman, and realized that actually this was a big topic, sustainability. A lot of people doing things in this area. But how did you find out what was going on? And that got me thinking about, could I create a platform that aggregated who's doing what, and share knowledge and learnings and experiences by creating a digital platform to aggregate who's doing something. And so pretty much since May, June, I've been gathering data. My son Freddie's been helping me out in his spare time, getting some data together. Right. I've had a few other people helping me out. I've had Veronica and Alex working with me, helping to build the back end systems and get some information together. And so there's kind of a small core team of us, been working on this for about 5 or 6 months now. And yeah, it's been really fascinating to see, observe, meet some amazing people who are doing some fantastic stuff in sustainability.
I want to know exactly, so what then Global Sustainable Sport is, or GS Sport, as you say.
Yeah.
Just a few more people saying hi here. So Pav is actually in Birmingham.
Okay.
Jesus is saying hi from Rennes, France. Otello in Dakar, Senegal.
Okay.
Jonathan says Sportcal was great. No more. That's right. And then Jesus is actually commenting, take into account João's anecdote. If working with Mr. Laflin would drive me to work with FIFA, I would like to work with you.
Great.
Jesus, I think that's actually me going to FIFA at that time was more linked to my program, the FIFA Master one.
Yeah.
That's where I actually got the opportunity. But it was one of those things, right? Sometimes you apply, and then you don't get the opportunity.
Yeah.
At the time when I got that opportunity, they were looking for a journalist who could speak some Portuguese.
Right.
And they went to the program, to the FIFA Master, and happened to have a journalist or a former journalist from Brazil, and they wanted someone to do a one-day job. Right. And I just went and did that one-day job, connected with some people there, and to my surprise, a few sort of weeks later, they had to sack, the guy who hired me or who I worked for at the time, and then they reached out to me offering me the job. Mm-hmm. So it was funny. I didn't apply or anything. It was talk about being in the right place at the right time.
I think a lot of it is chance, isn't it?
That really, was it. You have to,
you have
to go to places, meet people, and then
Yeah.
sometimes the opportunity will come.
I think you have to try and open some doors yourself, really. I mean, and I think you're a bit like me. You've got that entrepreneurial spirit where you kind of just go in and chat to people and talk to people, and that gets things going. So,
Mike, there's someone very interested in sustainability here. So Hiroki Watanabe is saying hi from Japan, 2:30 a.m. there.
In the morning. Wow, Hiroki,
Wow.
hi.
Hiroki, are you trying to sleep? Maybe it's insomnia. Say, okay, I need to put something on so I can fall asleep.
Well done.
I hope we help you, but not so much.
That's amazing.
Mike, so tell us more about, so what is it exactly? So GS Sport. So what is the company?
Yeah.
Who do you serve? Is it a B2B? Is it, what's the business model?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a bit of what it is.
Sure. Well, so I mean, the initial concept is, where do you know what's going on in sustainability? And for me, what I'm good at is aggregating data. I mean, that's kind of technology, and data is kind of my area. And so I thought, what could I do to really help drive sustainability? What could I do to make a difference? I'm 63 now. I'm sadly becoming one of the grey-haired old men that I've been kind of trying to avoid being a grey-haired old man for years. But so what can I do? And I can build a data platform, and I can get some information together. And I think that what's really interesting about sport is I think sport's got so much opportunity. And there's kind of a diagram, if you go onto my website, under the sustainability and stakeholder platform, where we talk about the size of the sports industry. And right at the top, we've got the governing bodies, the national federations, the sort of policymakers, if you like, of sport. And then as you cascade down through that diagram, you've got the leagues, the clubs, you've got the venues, you've got the events, and then you've probably got all these brands and suppliers and everybody else. So my guess, and it's a really rough guess, is that there's over 400,000 organizations involved in sport in some shape or form. And it's probably bigger than that, but I'm just giving that as a sort of fairly prudent figure. So let's say there's 400,000 companies. And at the bottom, or going down to the bottom, to the sort of, the pyramid, you've got probably 1 billion people who are actively participating in some form of sport. And that could be at the elite level, that could be at the sort of competitive level, that could be just doing it for fun. And then you've probably got 4 to 5 billion people globally, half the world's population, who either watch sport or follow sport or actually attend sports events. So we've got an amazing reach as an industry, and I don't think that we use our platform well enough to do that. And for me, there's some major social and environmental issues and economic issues that sport can deal with or tackle. Inactivity. There's 1 billion people who are obese globally, according to the latest data. How does sport get the unengaged? Because sport's very good at engaging the engaged, but how do we help with health? How do we help with some of these social inequalities, diversity? There's a whole range of subjects that I think sport can really help with. And what we're seeing is a number of organizations being led by some of the big ones like FIFA and UEFA and IOC, but really being picked up by some of the clubs. So if you look around football, there's Forest Green Rovers in the UK doing a hell of a lot. But if you look around the world, there's a lot of major clubs who are putting together sustainability strategies, because they're realizing that fans, athletes, brands are all having to think about sustainability, and what are we doing for the future? You're looking at COP27 now, looking at what is going on with climate change. And you know, our goal.
I'll ask you a bit more sort of about sustainability, because I think it's, encompasses so many things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even hard to define. But Global Sustainable Sport, then sort of the website. So you talked about sort of the landscape, what it looks like, and how then what does the company do?
So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all aggregate a lot of content. So we're going to create a platform where we are gathering who's doing what. We're going to create some really interesting profiles on those organizations. We want to know what activity those organizations are doing. And so it's a bit like sort of what I've done before is aggregate data, create and analyze that data, and then provide that back as a service to the industry. So there's really, it's a bit of a project with at the same time kind of a joining fee, a subscription fee to content.
So companies would subscribe to just is that for to read news, or to have a list of what companies are doing?
I mean, I'll certainly keep a lot of the news information for free, but I think the case studies, the sort of the analysis of what's going on, the sort of real metrics around the industry is something that, you can access from the platform, and you'd subscribe to that. And also what we're then going to create is kind of an evaluation piece on how people are doing things. Because one of the things that I think is really missing out there is, are people doing things because they feel they need to, or are they doing things because they're really trying to make a difference? And so I think the evaluation of outcome is something that's really missing. And I've been talking to a lot of people in the industry about this. And there's a general feeling that there's a lack of a clear framework and a clear direction in the industry. And I think that with my experience of, the impact projects and kind of my work in the academic world, that I can kind of bring academic theory and work into kind of practitioner and build a really good framework where we can understand, are we doing the right things? And if we are, what's the impact of that? And so where I think we're missing as an industry at the moment, we don't really know where we are today. Most people don't have a clue. I was in Belgium a couple of days ago talking about global sustainability at the Sportcal conference. And one of the guys who was on the panel with me was talking about the fact that people like Man City didn't actually know how much water they were putting on pitches, and then suddenly decided, okay, hang on a minute, how much water are we actually using? Discovered they were spending £3 million a month watering pitches. So they realized that actually, if they were able to capture some water,
is that with Evian?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You would do wonder, actually. 3 million sounds a lot to me, but anyway. But you kind of think, well, there's some logical things here, and actually, Lara, who was on the panel from Waste Transformers, she's doing an amazing thing in the Johan Cruyff Stadium with using waste material to actually drive electricity in the stadium and create a fertilizer off the back of it. So what's really interesting, some fantastic activities going over there. So I'm going to try and aggregate that content into a central platform. I'm going to try and really create a mission to say, what are we doing in sustainability? Are we doing the right things? How do we make it help? And then what I want to do is support academic research. So projects like Kathy and Clemency are doing with Exeter and Bristol. I want to try and support academic research into sustainable solutions. So it's kind of a business, but it's also a bit of philanthropy in terms of doing some good things. And I think sport has the potential to do a lot. And this is what I'm hoping to do, is aggregate what's the industry doing and who's doing great stuff, and highlight the people that are really doing some good things. Yeah.
One thing I was thinking while you were talking is, one thing that industry really likes are rankings and awards. So I don't know if there is already a sustainable sports award type of thing, but it's the kind of thing you could put together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ironically enough, if you look
get a lot of attention to things that you're doing.
If you look at the website already, so there's an active section on the website, and you can go in and see, you know, who is active and who is not. And I know that I haven't got everybody by any means, but obviously, you know, the people that I've been able to identify, you can start to see which sports are really driving sustainability, who's really sort of pushing the bar. And it already creates a sort of mini index in itself already. So, you know, you can get an idea of where this is happening. And what I'm hoping is that cities and countries and sports will suddenly say, hey, we should be doing more. You know, are we doing more? So I hope.
And who are you mentioned? Sorry, and who are some companies that are leading in that space, or some sports organizations that you can point out?
Well, as I say, I mean, I think there is a number of consultancies who are kind of really well ahead of the game in terms of sport and sustainability. And you know, I've mentioned a couple of those already. There's three major alliances in the world. One is Green Sport Alliance in America, BASIS in the UK, and Sport Environmental Alliance C in Australia. There may be others, but I haven't come across them so far. So those are kind of the major ones. There is kind of an international group called SANSI who's doing a number of things, but the three big ones are sort of national ones. And then when you look on the website, you'll see I've got a kind of a featured section, and there's actually, we've kind of, well, initially what I've done is I've really looked at who's active in I've got a 7-pillar strategy of kind of what I think is important for sport. And it's based around the SDGs, which is the sports development goals that the UN created some years ago. And so if you kind of look on my section, these 7 pillars are kind of the key framework, if you like. Partnerships is really top and center. I think that sustainability cannot be done by one individual organization or person. It's really something that's a collective thing. So, and this is very much about what this is. This is very much kind of a collective platform and project. And so these alliances are working as collectives, bringing together different bodies in each country. And then what you've got is then a number of different federations and sports teams and leagues who've actually really grabbed this by the handle. So as I say, these 7 pillars, I've been measuring across who's active in people, planet, and participation. And I really wanted to know who's doing social programs, environmental programs, and getting people active. So they were kind of the 3 main pillars that I was looking at to start with. And I also wanted to know who had signed up to the UN framework and who had signed up to the UN Race to Zero. And there's only 30 companies out of the 800 that I've got on the platform who actually tick those boxes, where they're doing all 5 of those. And they're really varied. I mean, you've got Richmond Football Club in Australian rules in Australia. You've got the Czech Olympic Committee. You've got Palpai All-Stars Football Club in Botswana. You've got the National Olympic Committee in Denmark, Birmingham County FC. There's a whole range. The International Biathlon Union, who are doing, you know, some really good stuff. So I'm trying to highlight the really great work that some people are doing. And so there'll be some really interesting features on these companies coming through. And then as we develop it, the sort of the framework, the methodology, the concept, as you say, we'll probably end up with quite a lot of indexes out of this data. And as you know, as you quite rightly say, people love and hate indexes. But what I've seen from that is that, you know, there's some good stuff happening out there, but there's also some people who are not doing anything. So you know, hopefully this project will encourage those who haven't engaged in this process to really think about it.
Well, you managed the website a few times for reference. So for anyone watching, there's a link in the description, in both the description of the video on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So you can go in and click there later. There's a comment here also from Kathy saying, great to see also the BBC highlighting the great things individuals, organizations
Exactly.
are doing
Exactly. Yeah.
in Green Sports Awards, celebrating sustainability.
Yeah. And I think that's right. You know, there's media companies like BBC and Sky who are really pushing the thing. I don't know if you saw the Sky program a little while ago, Football's Greatest Challenge. Absolutely brilliant program, absolutely brilliant. And you know, they were interviewing a number of people about the climate impact of things on soccer. And you know, there was a number of footballers on that program all saying the impact they're seeing, and you only got to listen to some of the sports stars around the world saying, you know, they were playing in unbearable heat. You know, there's places they can't play because it's just simply too hot. So climate is a big issue, and we know that's a big issue, and we can see that from what's happening, and you know, we really need to do something about it now. We know there's a massive impact on oceans. So it's not just about climate, it's about our environment. You know, if you look at the last 50 years, 60% of our animal population has disappeared. So, you know, we're really not taking care of our planet. And at the same time, you know, we've got some huge social issues, and sport can play a massive role. And I think that what we've got typically is a lot of companies are looking at what we call ESG, and that's kind of been front and center for a lot of finance companies. But I think for sport, ESG is part of the equation, but it's not the whole equation. And actually, sport needs to think broader than ESG, and that's what these pillars are about. Is kind of looking at that.
ESG is standing for environment, social, and governance.
Governance, yeah.
Governance.
Yeah.
Right. So, Mike, so one of the impacts that I'm interested in, and I suppose that's you know, people that come to our channel are interested in as well, is maybe job opportunities in that area. I presume that as soon as, you know, companies or sports organizations start to pay more attention to that and invest more in that, they'll be hiring professionals to work in sustainability roles.
Yeah, exactly. And I think,
you know, what it looks like at the moment, you know, types of profiles that companies actually, or sports organization may be looking for at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite interesting because what I'm seeing around a lot in the industry is people joining the sports industry from a sustainability background. So you've got people who've been working in sustainability, but not in sport. And I've been talking to quite a few people about that. And so I think what I'm hearing from academic institutes is that they realize there's a huge demand for people who understand sustainability. And actually they could marry it with sport as well and create some really interesting academic programs. So I've been talking to a couple of universities about how they're thinking about creating academic programs to give people the opportunity to come into this area. There's a massive demand right now for sustainability experts in the sports industry, and just there aren't enough people around. I know a number of companies who are looking for people with experience in that area, and so, you know, it's the catch-22. How do you get into that if you haven't got experience?
Right.
I myself, I'm looking to build a research team working around this area. You know, I don't have a lot of funding at the moment. Hopefully, as the business grows, we can really develop it. But yeah, you know, I think that a bit like kind of we did at Sportcal, you get a lot of passionate people in a room together, and you build something really interesting. And, you know, Daniel Cade has been great, you know, really, really amazingly helpful in kind of thinking about how to develop this. I've had so many great people really trying to help me get this up and running. And so I think there's a massive opportunity where sport needs help from people who understand social impact, environmental impact, bringing that all together into the industry, and creating, a real buzz in this area. So I think that for people looking to get into this area, if you've got some experience in that space, then you're going to be gold dust. If you haven't, then I think, listen, I did a 3-day course. I've just finished another 6-day course. There are a number of courses. We're going to run some educational programs through Global Sustainable Sport to give really people who want to learn about sustainability the opportunity to learn how to get into sustainability. We want to educate senior execs, because really sustainability has to be central and core to the way businesses operate. Businesses have really got to think, I think, completely differently in the future about the way they operate. And I think that responsibility, social responsibility, and things like that are going to be coming front and center. And so companies are going to need that knowledge and that expertise. So I think that's really exciting, really exciting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely growing. You mentioned, obviously what you're doing, and we mentioned Dan Gate a few times. Another good friend of mine, Nick Lau, I don't know if you know him, is also launching sustainability in sports project / company as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to host a panel in a conference during the World Cup in Qatar about that.
Okay.
So that's great. Hopefully we'll be able to stream it. There is a comment here from Jesus who's in France, saying, "I love the work you are doing, and I hope that some more leaders in sport, in the sport industry, have more philanthropic initiatives and promote more sustainable projects."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a follow-up to that. Are all projects around sustainability, and he put between quotation marks, philanthropic initiatives, or can you also combine sustainability with commercial sort of enterprise and make even profitable?
It's an interesting one. Certainly when I kind of kicked this thing off, someone immediately said, "Are you not for profit, or are you a profit company?" Well, to be honest, I come from the area of running profit companies. I'm not an expert in not for profit. I know one or two people, and what we may do if the thing's successful is maybe create a foundation where we can fund projects out of the foundation, and certainly that would be something for me would be a marvelous achievement if we can do that. And I know a number of companies who's got that, but I know a number of people who are doing consultancies. They're a simple for-profit company where they're providing services to people. I see that Global Sustainable Sport is essentially a service company. It'd be providing help and services to companies. But a number of them have formed foundations off the back of it on that basis. And so it is an interesting, but I think that, if you're going to run something, I think having a commercial view on that is an important thing. And I think what you've got to consider is that sustainability is as much about economic sustainability as it is about environmental and social. And then if you don't get the economic bit right, well, there isn't any social and there isn't any environmental. So
that's right.
So it is a very balanced approach. So to me, I think it's okay to be a commercial company setting up this, but I can tell you that if we, make a bit of money, I'm going to be getting more Cathys and more Clemencies doing research and supporting sustainability projects, because I think there's so much we can do by supporting academic research and startups. There's some amazing startups out there with some amazing projects, and we've got to think about getting rid of oil and gas and moving to more sustainable energy sources and things like that. So So, you know, I think it's a great time to be doing this. I just hope a lot of people will support the concept, you know. So thanks, Joao, for giving me the chance to kind of talk about it.
No worries. My pleasure. I think that's definitely an important topic. We're getting close to the hour here, but I do have a few more now. Back to career-oriented questions. So we'll try to go through those rather quickly. But I imagine that you are asked for career advice all the time. You know, young people that want to start in sport, and so what advice do you normally give to people that are starting their careers in sport?
I mean, for me, the reason I moved into the sports industry is because I love sport. And actually, you know, sometimes you had to pinch me to say I'm actually working. I'm sure you've had the same experience when you're sitting by the pitch of a football match and you're going, and I'm working in this area. It's, you know, it's a love. But I think you've got to kind of marry that with your skill sets. You know, I was lucky enough that I had a technology background and could come into sport with a skill set that married technology and sport together. So I think you've got to kind of think what area you want to go in. I mean, I think, as you know from your time at Sportcal, sports just got so many areas that you can go into, and you know, if it's, I don't know, food and wine, there's an area for you in sport. If there's music, there's an area for you in sport. If there's a passion around performance, you know, I did some mentoring at Exeter University actually, and one of my mentees wanted to be a physio. Now that's not really my kind of area of expertise, but he reached out to me one day and he said, oh, I've applied to a variety of universities to do a master's. And he said, I said, so, you know, which unis have you applied to? And he said, well, and Birmingham. And I said, and he's Chinese, well, he's from Hong Kong. So I said, well, you know that Birmingham's hosting the Commonwealth Games. And he had no idea what the Commonwealth Games was, because, you know, it's not kind of on the radar of people in Hong Kong. So he said, what's the Commonwealth Games? So I sent him a whole bunch of stuff on the Commonwealth Games. And what was so satisfying was to see him send me a message through LinkedIn after the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, where he was a volunteer. And he did that because, you know, he was in Birmingham, and he sent this amazing message saying, thank you, Mike Laflin, for telling me what the Commonwealth Games is, because that's just the best experience of my life. And I think if you can get into volunteer around an event, if you can get some event experience like you did with FIFA, you apply, you get in, you get a foot in the industry, and then you kind of, you know, you look for your opportunities from there. So
yeah,
I think
volunteering is definitely a good one. What about formal education now? There's many masters in sport. You work with many of them. What's then, would you say, the real, or the importance of those, you know, that importance of formal education?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, listen, when I was coming into the industry, there was none of those, you know. So what is great now is a lot of universities are offering sport industry courses. I don't think there's enough sport business courses, but I think that they are growing.
Sometimes I feel that there's more courses than places.
Is that right?
You know, people graduate and then they really struggle sometimes to find a job.
Yeah, and I think that is an issue. You know, that is an issue for the industry. You know, it is. You know, how do you get from, you know, education into sport? And I think that is. I mean, you know, certainly when we were at Sportcal, God, you know, we got inundated with applications when we wanted researchers. So, so there is a huge thirst to work in that area. But you know, it's a growing industry, and certainly I would say now this sustainability kind of pieces coming together, that creates an avenue. But I think, as you say, I mean, look at your experience from FIFA Masters, or, you know, the IOC course. You know, you come in, you learn, you get to meet people in the industry. It opens up avenues. It's kind of, how do you get that first opportunity get into the industry. And and I think either it's through the academic route, or it's through the volunteering route, or you apply to companies. I know IMG used to do a sort of an work experience course, but I don't think many people ever got permanent positions out of that, but at least they got some understanding in the industry. So, but listen, I think iWorkininSport is brilliant, because you're connecting the future stars of the industry to businesses, and there needs to be more of that. So you now are fulfilling a role that just wasn't there before, and I think that's hugely valuable in what you're doing. So
we're trying.
Great to see that. Great to see that.
Mike, last two before we go. What's your favorite sporting moment?
My favorite sports moment. Wow, God, that's an interesting one, isn't it? There's been a lot. I think. Well, probably looking back in terms of sporting events I've been to. Probably the Beijing Olympics. Perhaps it wasn't even a sporting moment, but it was the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympics. I mean, that was just the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
But I would say, with my wife, going to the opening ceremony of London 2012 and sharing that with her, because one of the things that's quite sad about being in the industry is sometimes you can't share it with your close ones, because you're on your own. I was frequently sort of working on my own or with a small team of people. So I think London 2012 opening ceremony with my wife was just something very special. But on the track, oh my goodness, 1991, seeing Carl Lewis win 100 meters, seeing Linford Christie win in Barcelona, a lot of those athletics, watching Holland against Brazil in the semis in Montpellier. That was amazing. Mostly for the party afterwards, actually. The Brazilians and the Dutch had an amazing party afterwards, So it was great going to a football match where, you didn't get the England fans. So yeah, lots. Tennis, watching Becker and Edberg thrash it out at Wimbledon. I mean, there's so many great things. But actually, one of my memories as a sports athlete was running a steeplechase event at Crystal Palace and being by the track, taking off my spikes, having finished my race, and watching Zola Budd coming around the track, warming up before her race. And this tiny little girl was on the track, but the atmosphere was amazing. And I just went, I just love sport. It was just incredible. So, yeah, so many great memories, I could bore you for hours, but yeah, no, wonderful times.
Well, you do have many. By the way, say hi to Teresa for me.
I will. A big thank you to Erica for a lovely dinner.
You mentioned your favorite sporting time.
Yeah.
And last one, I always ask my guests to recommend a book to the audience, or either a book or a podcast or a YouTube channel, something any recommendation that you would like to give.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there's a lot. I think Jonathan Overand and Melissa are doing a great podcast at the moment. Which is kind of around sport and sustainability. That's Jonathan Overand's an ex-BBC guy. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what it's called now, but I'll send it to you to share. I mean, I've been reading a lot around the sustainability space. There's a really good book from the ex-CEO of Unilever about their whole sort of journey on sustainability. That's really, really fascinating. There's the guy who was at Two Circles, Matt.
Matt Rogan.
Yeah, who's written a really great book, actually, really, really worth the read around that. So, have you read that recently?
Yeah. What's the name? I think I have it here.
All to Play For, it's called.
Exactly. Yeah.
All to Play For. Great book, actually. Really, really interesting. And Matt's a great guy. He's done some fantastic things. So yeah, you know, I mean, that is certainly something I do a lot. I do read a lot.
Kathy is asking if you're thinking of Emergency on Planet Sport.
Yes, exactly. Well done, Kathy. Yeah.
Is that the podcast?
Podcast, yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's great. Really good. Really, really good, actually. So yeah,
it's great, isn't it, that we're talking and then there's people that can help us out.
Good old Kathy. She's got my back on this one, so you know. So, but yeah, no, I think. Listen, I think, you know, there's a lot to read about. There's a lot to think about. And one of the things is, I think a lot of people are at the beginning of this journey, and I don't think they should be afraid to recognize the fact that they're at the beginning of this journey. You know, I'm exactly the same. You know, I mean, you know, my company's 3 days old. You know, launched in the middle of a sport tech conference. So, you know, we're all kind of on this. And if you kind of look at my website, I've kind of framed a project that's a 10-year project that simply says, here we are today. Let's imagine we go from Beijing and Birmingham to Brisbane in 2032. A 10-year journey. What will we look like in 2032? And so if we start doing something now, maybe we can really make a difference in 10 years time. And, you know, I'll be well in my 70s by then, and you know, hopefully just playing golf around the corner, but hopefully done something nice with the rest of my time. So
yeah, I'm sure. Mike, that's great. Thank you so much for doing this, for being here, for sharing that with everyone. There is a message here from Jesus saying, thanks, João and Mike, for this great iWorkininSport live interview. Very interesting. I thought so as well. Thanks for everyone that participated and helped us with the comments, right, Kathy? And,
thank God Kathy turned up. So, yeah.
Jesus is asking you to repeat the name of the Matt's book.
Yeah, All to Play For.
All to Play For.
Yeah.
Jesus, we actually have an interview, a live interview with Matt as well. So go there in our library. So we actually talk about that book as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're definitely worth the read. Yeah, really good.
Check that out. I think there is some interesting information there too.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Thank you so much. Stay there. Don't turn it off. I'll get back to you. I'm just gonna say bye to everyone that was watching here. Until now. I don't know if we're gonna have one next week. We're kind of preparing things to go to Qatar. For the World Cup. I'll actually going to be at the Thinking Football Summit organized by the Portuguese League. I'll actually be posting a 50% discount for everyone that is following iWorkininSport as well. I should have said that at the beginning, but anyway, I'll send that via LinkedIn messages, or I'll post somewhere. And yeah, so be a bit busy in the next few weeks. Maybe we do one then, or perhaps after the World Cup. Mike, great to see you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank you very much.
here.
Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.